It's 12:02, Gene. We're going to kick things off. Um, welcome everyone to the Spring Reading Financial Literacy Month event hosted by the Sokolov-Miller Family Financial and Life Skills Center at Penn State. I'm delighted to have my colleague Gene Natali visiting today to read a bit from his book, The Missing Semester, and to answer some questions for us and share a little bit about the work that he does. Let me sing Gene's praises for a minute, give you an idea of his background, which is not just sort of author of this book, but has multiple hats. So Gene Natali is the founder and CEO of Troutwood, a fintech company founded out of Carnegie Mellon University Schwartz Center. He is a chartered financial analyst, board member of the CFA Society of Pittsburgh, personal finance instructor at the University of Pittsburgh, and executive in residence at Penn State Barron. Gene is also an award-winning author of this book, The Missing Semester, written for the student audience. The Missing Semester provides a short course on the essentials for making wise financial decisions and was recognized for excellence in financial literacy education and used in classrooms across the country. Gene has given over 1,000 personal finance presentations and regularly keynotes investment and education conferences across the country. He holds an MBA with a concentration in finance from Carnegie Mellon University and a bachelor's degree with a concentration from economics in Allegheny College. Gene, thanks so much for being here.
Julie, thank you for the opportunity. I'm looking forward to the questions and the engagement.
So let's just kick things off with giving you the mic for a minute. Obviously, we want to hear a little bit from the book. Hopefully, folks who are attending today had a chance to at least skim it. Before we get into that, just want to give one more note that these books are available. Anybody who wants a copy can come by the center and get it. They can get it at all of the campuses have a financial wellness bookshelf that includes these books if you want a copy of your own, or if they're all out there on the wellness shelf. Most of them are in libraries across the university library system. So you can check it out or get the ebook. I'll put a link in the chat while Gene is talking and sharing a little bit more to access the Financial Literacy Library Guide. So Gene, I'll hand you the mic for a minute and you can take it away.
Yeah, I'll use the minute because I know we have some presentations and questions coming. The minute just to stress the importance of this conversation. It's a bit of a new world, and I'm not just referring to the current headlines. It's a new world for students that hasn't been well communicated from the standpoint you are in charge of your financial future, your retirement planning, in a way that your parents and grandparents probably were not. We transferred the risk as a society to you, but we also transferred the opportunity, and the opportunity is a really big deal. So we're going to spend most of our time today talking about positive things, talking about steps that you can take to be on that path. The headline I like to give: if you do nothing, you'll have nothing. And that's the hard reality right now. Like you're in charge. So that's the empowering opposite side of if you do nothing, you'll have nothing, but you're in charge, and we're going to talk about steps you can take today.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I mean, I think someone asked me the other day, what's one thing? If you had like one thing to say, and I said, first of all, I don't like the TikTok. You have 1 minute to teach personal finance, but compounding interest. And it's something that I think you also highlight in your book too.
Yeah. Well, FINRA was here in Pittsburgh a month ago, and they shared a statistic that I did not know, Julie, you may know, but 70% of finfluencers, so financial influencers, don't just give bad advice, it's flat out wrong. Mm-hmm. But we as individuals, and that doesn't, and by advice, I'm not meaning entertainment. I mean like the actual things they're telling you to do are wrong. But how do we as individuals know good from bad advice when we're not domain experts in the topic, right? What if you and I were instructed with building a house today, and we were watching videos on how to do so, but we didn't know because we're not, at least I'm not a house builder, I'm not an architect. You don't know how to differentiate good from bad decision making. And I think that Absolutely. Is a new world.
Yeah, no, that's a good metaphor. The house, the metaphor I often use is like, imagine you've never had coffee before, but you'd like to start caffeinating. Okay? But when you went online and Googled like having a first cup of coffee, instead of getting your like $20 like coffee maker, which is just like pour the grounds in, press start, you see like you see like pour over coffee, espresso coffee, mushroom coffee, don't drink coffee, it's bad for you. You see all of these things and you have no language to navigate that. So I think that's the other thing that we don't realize we're consuming with advice from finfluencers is that they might be telling you it could be a lot easier to drink coffee than what you're being told. It's not that they're necessarily even wrong or sometimes they're giving bad information, like you said, a lot of the time, but even information that's incomplete. So
Yeah. Yeah. But it's the world that we have to learn to navigate.
yeah, which is part of, why I think it's important to bring on and, as part of what we're doing for our students to say, we picked these titles and these books. There's a lot of things you can read. You're welcome to read them, right? And they're going to give different advice. This is a subjective thing, right, at times, but we would like to highlight folks that we think and we agree with what they're saying and their message and their philosophy is. So, that's why we wanted to chat with you and we love your book and we know students are getting a lot out of it.
Oh, thank you, Julie.
So, however you want to do this, Gene, if you'd like to read a section or share some slides or give your comments or remarks, up to you.
I do have a couple of slides I'd like to dive right into, Julie. And
Go
there's
for it.
slides that we can tie quotes in, we can tie your questions into, but they speak to they speak to what's happening in the world right now, and they speak to the opportunity that students have. I will share that I have a dream and a strong opinion that every student should graduate with a plan, a bank account, and an investment account. Like that triangle is really important for building a financial future, because in a world where I graduate either high school or college without those three things, it may be a while before I have all three, because we have a concentrated audience on campus. We can sometimes take for granted how powerful that is. But once we graduate, we disperse. Many small businesses don't offer benefits. The student loan fear is very, very real. And if I don't have this education, I may focus entirely on my student loan repayment and think I can save for retirement later. But then there's data that shows you finish your student loans, you get married, you buy a house, and later becomes really later. There's a statistic that has become more well publicized. Close to half of Americans are retiring with only Social Security. Only Social Security. That's really, really frightening. That's not what Social Security was intended to be, our sole source of income in retirement. Students, pivoting this back to you, that means opportunity to not be a statistic. There's two slides in particular I want to share. Trowwood is the name of the business I founded out of Carnegie Mellon. We build financial planning software and are playing a role in helping individuals have access to a financial plan, but also an understanding of what that means. This is a snapshot of the real world. And I've been giving this presentation, as Julie alluded to, for about a decade now. I'm always changing slides, always changing numbers. These statistics, the stress, the paycheck to paycheck, have never lowered. Year over year, they're just a little bit higher, unfortunately. So it's a problem that we have not yet collectively solved. Here is something I'd really, really like to open everyone's eyes to. Robinhood has done an excellent job of creating excitement around investing. A big, big part of this, if you look at the numbers here on the screen, in 2019, we had 42 million brokerage accounts. That's taxable investment accounts here in the US. It's 3 times higher now. And I'll speak to why that happened and what that means for you. But looking in the paragraph, I'm not going to read this verbatim here, but students, I want you to understand this. The average Robinhood portfolio is 90 to 95% stocks, 5 to 10% crypto, and then the remaining in cash. So those are very, aggressive, risky portfolios, which is fine. That's what the stocks are intended to do. But the average Robinhood user underperforms the stock market by 6% a year. If I have $1,000 in my Robinhood account and I underperform the S&P 500 by 6%, that's $60 of underperformance. What though, if we look at that percentage for all $32 billion of Robinhood's assets? What is 6% of 32 billion? Over $2 billion. Students, what I'd like you to think about, and I'm going to pivot this in a really good direction, so bear with me. $32 billion with 6% of underperformance a year is $2 billion a year. Compound that over a lifetime for those same users. Trillions of dollars is what that means. What if you could match the performance versus underperform by 6% a year? It's a very, very big dollar amount. And that's the opportunity that I think that you have. I'm not saying either or here. What we're going to do is pivot to the first step. I'm not even going to say don't use Robinhood. I love these kind of conversations, but I think you want to have a financial foundation before that. And here's your once in a generation opportunity. I mentioned to start these few slides that those statistics are worse every year that I've been giving the presentation. The financial stress is the one that's sitting on me a lot right now. I'd really like to think of ways to reduce financial stress for households. Very difficult to say that right now in lieu of the stock market's performance and some of that. Independent of this is what's happening at the ground level. Financial literacy education is trending massively in high school and college campuses, and that is a big deal. Kudos to you for being here, for listening to the recording. You're gaining education. What you choose to do with that is up to you. But because financial literacy wasn't taught for many generations, wellness is trending in the workplace. Financial wellness is the top requested employee benefit right now. So employers are looking for ways to solve that on behalf of maybe your parents or the generations that came before you who didn't have this conversation or this class. But it's number 3 and 4 that I need you to not forget and to act on. Retirement responsibility. Historically in America, we received a pension fund in return for doing our job. If I was a live audience, I would ask for a poll of hands if anyone has a pension fund or knows someone who does. Yesterday or 2 days ago at Penn State, New Kensington, we raised that one student raised their hand for having a pension fund from the whole group. That's about average what I see, maybe one hand going up. As opposed to giving you the long history of a pension fund, I'm going to summarize it as income for life. So one student had income for life in that entire audience. Everyone else is responsible for replacing that. Again, you're in charge. And in the slide, you see ways to do that: 401k, 403b, 457, Roth IRA. These are employer or individual sponsored retirement plans. It's number 4 that makes it possible, though. You can now invest $50 a month, right? Set up $10 reoccurring contributions. Historically, it wasn't possible to do dollar amounts that low. So students, I have sat down with many of your counterparts and just get started, just do something. The door is open. If you have questions, knock on Julie's door, email, call. Don't leave without getting your questions answered. Julie, can I give 4 quotes? I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, but I was going to give 4 quotes and then stop screen sharing here.
Go for it. Yeah.
These are 4 quotes that I like, and they're different. I have a personal opinion that we are moving past like investing based on financial metrics into long-term relationships. And that's what investing is. It's a long-term relationship. Penn State's endowment understands this. Large retirement plans understand this. We as individuals, though, are fed ads that say, pay me a subscription fee and I'll tell you what the stock market's going to do. The only person getting rich is the person collecting the stock market fee. I had a student, and I'm not going to name the student or the school since this is recorded, but was running a business for stock tips. Very catchy name. Wasn't a finance major, but people were willing to pay just for the perception that this student had information they didn't. and the student was just literally blog posting an article from CNBC or the Wall Street Journal every day. That's how desperate we are for shortcuts. The best shortcut might be that there isn't a shortcut. Second investing quote here: time and investing is a powerful combination. Time is the more powerful ingredient of the two, the more important ingredient. And we can do some modeling in the second half with that if there are questions. Number three, I just flat out love. Your age is an opportunity powerful enough to change the lives of a generation. I'm going to have fun with this one very briefly. I'm speculating that everyone attending or listening to this brushed their teeth today. Just guess.
I did.
Julie did. I did too.
I'll own it up.
We do so because the dental industry has done a great job of explaining why it is important to brush our teeth. The follow-on question I like to ask is, how many of you also invested $3.25 today in the stock market? Because $3.25 invested every day has made you a millionaire in 100% of our past career cycles in the US. That's the magic number that over a 42-year career would make you a millionaire. Ask me questions on that if you'd like at the end. And then number four, this one I circle back based on a lot of questions I've got in the past, and I'm gonna turn the screen share off. It's the decisions you make that give you the money to invest that are more important than the actual investment when you adopt that long-term mentality. What are the decisions you can make that free up that $3.25 a day?
Lots to chew on there. I think I'll note one thing there. I do think that the whole time is a factor here that's important, but also we are in an interesting time for investing. ETFs, robo investing has really changed the game and the interface and the ability to democratize some of this space that wasn't before. So I do think, right, it's important that we do revisit pieces of how we're accessing the market. So I appreciate you noting that.
Yeah. No, thank you, Julie.
Gene, we've got questions coming in already, but let's go ahead and do some reading from the book, and then we'll go into questions. So if you guys have questions, I love them. Keep asking them. I will keep track of the ones that are coming to the chat or put them to the Q&A, and we're going to have time for those at the end. But we'll get a reading in, and then I know you guys are hungry to converse with Gene. I am too. So we will get to all those questions. I really appreciate it. The enthusiasm.
Yeah. I'll do, Julie, I'll keep them. I'm going to keep them short and let you nudge me.
Okay.
A couple of the concepts that I like doing. I think that our industry is filled with finance jargon. And if we speak finance jargon, that we could lose folks who maybe most need that financial advice. Chapter 2 of the missing. So the two books I wrote, Missing Semester Money 101, Missing Second Semester Investing 101, both award winning. The second chapter of the Missing Second Semester takes a theory that I love to talk to and engage in, and it's called the Watching Trees Grow Club. And I have actually in auditorium settings pulled chairs into a circle, said, hey, we're going to form a club here on Penn State's campus. It's going to be called the Watching Trees Grow Club. And all we are going to do is plant a tree, sit in a circle, and watch it grow. We aren't going to talk because we're so passionate about watching trees grow. We don't like to be interrupted when our club meets. And when you introduce this concept and people aren't expecting it, you get some weird looks, right? Like, Gene, who on earth would start a Watching Trees Grow Club? But what if we were talking about money instead of trees? Would club enrollment be larger? If instead of, like, what if you had two competing posters on the wall? Would you like to join our Watching Trees Grow Club? We sit in a circle and watch a tree grow. It's really exciting. Or, hey, Watching Money Grow Club, and we're going to talk about how to make money grow. This one's going to have a lot more attention. The part of the analogy I love is look outside right now, wherever you are. I'm sure there's a giant tree, maybe a big oak tree, maybe a big maple tree. It worked. So if we chose to start a Watching Trees Grow club on campus, it takes time, but it works. And imagine, I like this analogy in the book. It talks about having a 20-year reunion. You get your letter in the mail. Hey, come back for your 20-year reunion on campus. And let's say the group of us, the 15 of us, stubbornly started the Watching Trees Grow Club. And we come back for that 20-year reunion. Everyone who wouldn't join our club now looks at our big tree and says, I really want that. But here's what happens in society. In the 20 years since we graduated and formed our club, those classmates that didn't join learned, to Julie's point, how important time was and that they don't get it back. So remember how we started this, every student having a plan, a bank account, and an investment account. Money does grow the same way if you invest it wisely. And I see a question in the chat that we'll address later in that, but money does grow the same way. Our tree took 20 years to grow. Everyone at the reunion wants a tree that looks like the one you planted. So now imagine that big tree and replace that with an investment account that has 150,000 or 250,000 because you started right now with that $3. Julie, should I pause after each one or kind of just keep going with a handful?
I say keep going. We'll go into questions soon, but yeah, keep going. I'm definitely curious to hear like what you pick out of, you know, all the content in here. So
well, I'm going to keep on the same theme. I have 4 in mind that I'm going to go with, and then you can steer me in the other direction. But number 2 here. All right, now let's say you're smiling and enjoying that Watching Trees Grow analogy. You're with me. Say, Gene, I get it. Yeah, trees get big and they take time. I get that. Money works the same way. But boy, Gene, it's just now is not the time. And I'm not going to argue that opinion. I'm going to let you form your own opinion, but I'm going to give you a second analogy. I'm going to read directly from the book here again, then I'll bring the analogy. Alaska is a beautiful state, beautiful with a very long winter. So long that when it isn't winter, residents must use that time to prepare for next winter. And without enough food, firewood, and other essentials, winter can be more than just cold. Let me pause. We've bought on to our Watching Trees Glow Club analogy, but it's winter time. There's no leaves. Our tree is smaller, at least looks smaller than it was when we planted it, and we're beginning to doubt what we're doing and why. Stepping away from financial jargon, I want you to now imagine you're in a cabin in the woods and those trees, right? You need them for future firewood. And if you cut them all down, you don't have future firewood. So even in hard times like right now, it can be helpful to step away and use non-financial analogies. And in that chapter of the book, it talks about insurance, emergency funds, some of the things you can do around that. This is my next chapter 5. I'm staying with missing second semester here, and it's titled The Opportunity Cost. So we could like this is a concept you could take many different ways. Like, what's the opportunity cost of me eating a donut every morning instead of spinach? There's probably one, right? What is the opportunity cost of an 18-year-old high school senior who buys a $10,000 car, even though they knowingly can afford a $13,000 car, and then chooses, because of this seminar, because of Julie's work on campus, chooses to invest the difference each month of the car's loan? Julie, this is one of my absolute favorite things to do. I'm going to read directly because this chapter of the book, I'm on page 22, has 3 questions. The first question is, what is the difference in price between a $10,000 and a $13,000 car? And if this was for letter grade, There are a number of students that would get it wrong because they think it's a trick question and it's so easy. The answer is 3,000. Price. Difference in price is 3,000. But Julie, students stare and they're like, there's got to be a trick. It's got to be one. The other options are 4,000, 5,000, and 380,000. No trick question. The difference in price between a $10,000 and a $13,000 car is $3,000. Second question, what is the largest possible difference in cost? So different question. We changed price to cost between a $10,000 and a $13,000 car. I have seen students give me a page of notes to say the difference in cost when I factor in insurance, gas mileage is $4,387. Our brains aren't programmed to think about opportunity cost. It doesn't get factored into the math. Opportunity cost is taking the $50 monthly difference in your auto loan and putting it in your Penn State Roth IRA. I want to pause so that sinks in. And I'm going to bring up a can I do a screen share?
Yeah.
On this, I want to drive this point I think is very interesting. Let me clear my bankrate.com calculator. All right. I'm going to do a screen share. We're going to do this together. All right, so I just came to bankrate.com's calculator. I'm going to say for 5 years of an auto loan, JP Morgan says the 100-year history of the stock market is 10.5% a year. That's gross. Students who want to factor in inflation use 7% for that rate of return. We're going to do $50 per month for 5 years. Okay, remember, where did this come from? This comes from the 15 of you bought the $10,000 car, not the $13,000 car, and the difference in your monthly auto loan is $50. But because you could afford the $13,000 car, you created the ability to fund your Roth IRA with $50 every month. Click calculate, and at the end of 5 years, I have $3,699 in my Roth IRA, and I own my car. I'm thrilled. But then I forget everything about what we talked about today. I don't save another nickel. I'm going to round that to 3,700 here for just easy math. And the example in the book was an 18-year-old, which means I'm now 23 years old. I'm not going to save another nickel. Oops, sorry, I put the wrong years. I put my age, and I'm going to save from 23 to 65. 42 years. Everyone see that number on the screen? And in every 42-year period in history, there are bad economic times. So it's not unique right now what we're going through. You don't know what they are until they happen. Remember all that we did. Let's say this young man or woman was a nurse, wants to be a nurse. And because they made this one smart money choice, bought a car they can afford, knowingly save for 5 years, they have $250,000 in a Roth IRA and a really good nurse. Now, of course, you can all do the math. Well, what happens if I save a little bit every month? What if I take your $3.25 idea, Gene? Becomes very big. Julie, I'm going to read a last quote that I think is timely, and then you can steer me. And this is kind of fun. It's the last chapter, The Missing Semester. This is the conclusion. It Isn't Luck is the title. And actually, I'm going to bridge. I'm going to bridge chapter 13 of the book and conclusion. Imagine reaching retirement age and realizing you simply can't do it. And the reason I'm sharing that with you, and a lot of my student interactions, they say, Gene, I don't need to worry about that. Way down the road. Like, I'll worry about that when I get closer to retirement. And that's why I'm reading that quote. The difference between carving out that decision we just made on the car or that $3 a day is the difference between being able to retire and not retire. If you don't want to, great. Take awesome vacations to Hawaii with your savings, but give yourself the option of doing so. There is a terrific chart on page 79 of the book, and both books are intentionally kept under 100 pages. I had the belief, I know my attention span is short, and I wanted to create books that people finished in a space that can be tough to write about. The last chapter, conclusion, it isn't luck. This talks about, and I'll share in hindsight, the gentleman in the book was a personal friend, Norm Johnson. When you read it, he passed away at 92 years old. We did woodworking together. There's a quote I keep in my journal: if you keep your eyes and ears open, life will show you the way. Right? It will bring people in your lives who influence you in all sorts of ways. Norm Johnson was a massive influence on my life. We did woodworking together. He shared wisdom. I remember drinking coffee with him. And at 92, he said, "Gene, it took me a long time to realize how little I actually know." And I appreciate that. In a world of domain expertise, that it took a long time for Norm to learn that lesson, but at least he shared it to me. The last page of the book: you are responsible for your action and for your inaction. We are living in an era of responsibility. You are in charge. That is meant to be empowering, not terrifying. Don't expect help. Know the arena you are entering. And let me help by tuning out some of the noise in the societal pressures. Societal pressures. I'm going to share how I define wealth. And for all of us, it's different. But as you think about your financial future, what if we collectively define wealth as having enough money to spend time with people we love, enjoy being around, in places we enjoy being? Simplify that equation, not dollar amounts, not fancy cars or big homes. Let those be, decisions you make as those doors open, but simplify to, I just want to have enough to be happy and enjoy the people in my life, and then meaningfully exceed that.
Thank you so much, Gene. It's always inspiring to hear you talk about this. I think so. One of the first, when I was thinking, what questions do I want to ask Gene? I think one of the things that really stands out to me about your books and having heard you speak before is, we hear this kind of term, like live within your means, live within your means. And I think a lot of times it's seen as almost like a warning, like it will go bad if you don't live within your means. But I think when you talk about opportunity costs, that's what I always hear in your books, is that this is like a philosophy about what you value and how you can, like, living within your means is creating greater opportunity. It's not a like warning of if you don't do this, and then something bad will happen necessarily, right? It's more in this like positive direction of like your example about the car, like your ability to make a decision with your finances that is going to give you more options in the end. So the question I have for you is that I guess what a simple way of putting that is, I see this as sort of a layman. This is written for your everyday person, right? To think about the decisions they're making on a daily basis and how they can, not to be too cheesy, but like turn that into a beautiful life, right? A beautiful financial life, but also deep, like you said, your ability to spend more time doing the things you love and not feel inhibited by finances. So what inspired you to write The Missing Semester, The Missing Second Semester? And there's a lot of financial books out there. What was the unique message? And like, was there a moment where you're like, this is the book I want to write about?
Mm-hmm. So the inspiration, even though the title implies that it was maybe seeing the subject wasn't taught at the time broadly enough, the inspiration actually came at the time I was in my early 30s. And so much of my network, my wife's nights out with friends, were about financial stress, not about our kids or this great vacation. It was, we don't have enough money for next weekend. So it was just looking at people in everyday life with great degrees and great jobs who had done everything right according to the quote unquote textbook, but they were broke. And they were broke because they didn't have this conversation. So the opposite, Julie, of the opportunity cost of the car example we looked at is the student who buys the Ferrari or the fancy car 22 and can't afford it, can't pay off the credit card debt, and dials down the other direction. And there's a great chart in the missing semester that shows two different paths. So the inspiration was looking at everyday people with really good jobs that were broke and thinking, boy, they were smart enough. They just were completely unaware. The inspiration for the second book came from the financial literacy movement, the budgeting, but also that, like, don't drink coffee and you'll be a millionaire. I mean, that's a big opportunity cost. I go to bed thinking about my morning cup of coffee. That's a big ask to tell the world, don't drink coffee. That's the secret to getting rich. And no, it was other decisions. You would get one shot at life. You want to find the healthy balance between enjoying it and, preparing future self. So that was looking at how under-taught investing was and how much of the current literature was focused on day trading stocks versus building long-term wealth.
Mhm.
And the unique message, I think, is the analogies and the simplicity of the book. I'll share, probably might have been 3 a.m. writing the missing semester. I'm like 15, 25 pages into chapter 1 saying, boy, this is easier than I thought. And I had a light bulb moment and said, wait a minute, who's still reading? There's a ton of finance books that are this fat that non-finance people aren't reading. And that moment completely pivoted the book to, if we're going to reach non-finance people, we have to speak a language that they'll act on.
I love that. And I think that shows up, yeah, very clearly. And I also appreciate you're getting claps too. I don't even see the thumbs up and the claps coming through, but the length of the book too, right? I think that matters. And I think that in the era of short attention spans and busy students, right? This is a book for students, whatever age, or where they're at in that process, but keeping it short is certainly enticing. So it covers concepts, really a lot of concepts within financial wellness, budgeting, investing, debt management. But what do you think is the most common mistake that you see, especially young people making with money, and how could they avoid it?
The most painful is credit card debt, and I always see students that are unable to pay that. The most common is fear around student loan repayment, even small amounts, that prevent the student from being able to embrace investing. And I've studied this pretty intentionally. Students, in at least my experience, view 100,000 in student loan debt as scary as 20,000. It's this big unknown. And when you step back into why, when we're 18, what's the biggest check we've ever seen? Not 20,000. At least I didn't have a 20,000. Like the size of our student loans is so much bigger than we are able to comprehend financially. Up to that point, it creates fear. And the fear prevents progress on investing. And I think probably, Julie, as I think about this, there's also certainly disbelief that saving $3 a day can make you a millionaire. Because if it was that easy, everyone would be doing it, right?
Well, it's not as real to them,
Yeah.
right? That money is available. It feels too good to be true. Whereas the debt in the account, they can look at their debt, log in and see it. And that's, yeah.
I love that you said that. Yeah, real versus like real and tangible versus potentially real but not tangible.
Potentially real, and like the barrier to entry, whereas they're like, oh, I already have this. I see this a lot too, of like they felt so focused on their student loan that has like a 4% interest rate. I mean, even a 6% interest rate, and you're not thinking about the cost of having that start their investing journey later, right? And what they're losing out on from an interest perspective. Like anyone, you can crunch those numbers, but I think it just doesn't hit them as hard as like, yeah, I'll sleep better. It's and teach their own. I mean, I definitely have people who are of that, get out of debt, sleep better at night kind of mentality. And it's not that you can say that they're wrong because it's an emotional choice that they're making there. But I do think that it's not abundant message when they're staring down their student loans or credit card debt is different, right? That is more of a financial crisis that they need to manage from an interest perspective. But yeah.
I'll add variable rate private loans that have really reared at the last few years. So students that are listening and hearing this, debt versus invest balance, the two situations where they don't apply are credit card debt, like Julie alluded to, And if you have high private loans, I'm seeing 14% pretty regularly right now. Put a bullseye and get rid of those.
Yeah. Or high risk investments, I would also put in that, like investments that you're not, right? When we say investing too, right? If you don't know what the return is, or there's not a historical record of what the return is, like in some ways that is variable. We're not talking about the same type of investment, right?
That is, I wish I wrote a chapter on that, Julie, because
Cryptocurrencies and
yeah, like that. Well, and they're just unfortunately aren't shortcuts to building financial security, but we are as a nation are prone to look for shortcuts and to take chances. A quote that came from FINRA's research on this space that really stuck with me. I was talking with Jerry Walsh, who's their executive director on the education side. People who don't have much are willing to risk all of it because they don't lose much. And that really struck with me because I think a lot about what you just said there, Julie. Why are people taking these crazy chances with close to 0%? Well, if I don't have much, I'm willing to take the moonshot because I'm back to not having much, which I've been there before.
or if you feel like if you feel disenfranchised, right, with the system too. I mean, I see that a lot too. It's like, I don't trust any of that, or like, I don't, and they're far more likely to trust, I mean, whatever other alternative currency or alternative investment they're looking at. So I think there's also a lot of if they don't feel as though they've benefited, people like them have benefited historically. Why should anything be different now? So I see that a lot too. This is kind of really, so how do you feel about the role of technology in personal finance? And do you think tools like budgeting apps and investing platforms that are more democratized, user-friendly, what are they doing to the financial literacy landscape? Is it really helping? Is it going to change the game? Obviously, I know that you have an app, but I'm just curious generally how you think about this. Like, what is this going to do to the space?
I love that question. I can, yes, offer a very intimate behind the scenes perspective. And I want to put a disclosure on my perspective. Any investing through any of these platforms, as long as it is good long-term traditional investing, investing something is better than doing nothing. So I'm a little bit ambivalent between Stash, M1, Public, Robinhood, Vanguard, Fidelity, Schwab, if doing nothing is the alternative. If we go a little deeper though and say, well, what if we define success as putting the most money in an individual's pocket? That meaningfully narrows the playing field of providers. And just three big ones, Vanguard, Fidelity, and Schwab are certainly worth doing homework on there. There's a lot of marketing around the big low-cost providers. So we have to learn to navigate that. Investing has been commoditized. At Troutwood, we wanted to build an all-encompassing investment application. I can tell you what I learned is that I couldn't compete on fees with Vanguard, with Fidelity. And I was losing sleep at night because of how many folks were calling me saying, Gene, I can't wait for you to launch this investment app. I said, well, but wait, you could do the same thing at Vanguard and you make more money if you do that. Now, what it does, though, Julia, shows the power of good design, right? Good communication, bringing people into a system that they don't trust. So there's lots to learn on both sides there. And again, remember, doing something is better than doing nothing. The budgeting side, I also have great insight into, and I have a fairly bold comment on budgeting. Budgeting is table stakes. Everyone should have a budget. I don't care where you budget. I care that you do budget, but don't view budgeting as your lifeline. Budgeting is how you keep your head above water, right? It shows where you've been. Planning is how you get where you're going. And it's the planning piece that is missing. And we dove deep into that, looking at behind the scenes. There's thousands of budgeting apps now. You have students maybe even on this call or listening who could download an Excel template, go to Good Designer, code it in Python, and be up and running with a budgeting app in very short order. The differentiation, though, is the guiding to a goal. That's the missing piece in society right now. It's connecting the two dots, the budgeting to the investment. But bigger than that, that statistic we started this conversation with, 50% of Americans are retiring with just Social Security. They're not in this system. They're not part of this conversation. And we have to not just open that door, we have to listen. We have to take time to understand their fears, their concerns, and help meet them where they are to get them where they want to go.
Um, we've got time for maybe two more questions. I got one longer question, one shorter one. So you mentioned the importance of making financial decisions based on your values, right? I love what you said about, like redefining wealth, right? Can you explain how someone can align their spending and saving habits with their personal values? Or at least how can you explain how do you feel you align your spending with your personal values?
I love that. On the professional side, it's called SRI investing, socially responsible investing, for any finance students that might be listening. Personally, and this is a crazy coincidence. I opened the book, The Daily Stoic, yesterday, and it opened to the page, life is simpler than we make it. We all need far less than we think. Julie, maybe it's probably a testament to my parents or my family. I have never lost sight at any point in my career that as long as my family is healthy and I have a couple good friends, that life is good. And I don't know why I'm so fortunate to have that, because I see friends who suffer from the grass is greener if I get this nicer car. I want to keep up with my neighbor. And those are just losing battles. I'm not a psychologist to be able to speak to how others can navigate that. I didn't grow up with much. It's not because I was born into wealth that I have that mentality. At the end of the day, and I'll even be personal with the group at 11:11, every time you hit that like time where you look at your watch, I say I wish for the health and happiness of my family. So having whatever that foundation is for each of us individually, that is your foundation. Don't lose sight of that, because the pressures that surround us, the instant information of social media, can make it really hard to forget to remember what matters most.
Remember this Morningstar research that was done about how people feel about how much money they make, not necessarily grouping like what your income bracket was, but like how you feel about your money can be most closely linked to the street that you live on, right? And where you perceive yourself to be on that street. Like if you live on a really nice street, but you perceive your house or your financial situation to be less than your neighbors, then when asked about, how do you feel about your financial situation, you're going to say something far more negative, even if you're a higher income earner than someone who lives on, metaphorically, like a less fancy street, and but they perceive themselves to be doing at par with their neighbors or better than their neighbors. And so, that's that comparison that kills. And I think values are one of those things that, regardless of what street you live on, can kind of right size our emotions, right? Of outside of valuing kind of the house or whatever, but like if we keep our values in other things as well, and return to that when we're looking at our finances, right? Yeah. Are my finances allowing me to do the things that I said I wanted to do with my family, or create the time that it needs to be created?
Because Julie, what else? I mean, our health, the people in our life, right? Top two priorities. Mm-hmm. Money is number three. Like I'm always going to put health and human beings above money, but the money really, and I see the questions in the chat, the fear around money, like this is why we need to just like, I don't know how to break this wall down. And I'm going to be so aggressive to say education's not enough. Like we have got to just push students into Roth IRAs. We've got to almost require having a plan, a bank account, an investment account, if we're not going to come back to a world of pensions.
Right. How much of this stress is because the culture changed around us, right? Around this. Yeah.
But we didn't get the tools, right, to navigate the culture.
Yeah.
So it changed, but it was like fist bump, hey, good luck.
Yep. Yeah. Well, do well. We wish you the best. Okay, let's move into the chat because there's great stuff in there. So we have a question here. What are the recommended resources to shift mindset of employer retirement and pensions to enter micro investing wisely if you are risk averse?
Yeah. And I'll define micro investing as just being able to invest $1, $2, $5, which through most 401k platforms you can. So that part is already inherently built into a 401k. And if you're at a small business and don't have access to a 401k, I'll insert simple IRA, Roth IRA, or SEP IRA. They all work the same, where you can put a couple bucks into. It's and first of all, like employers need to own this. We need to stop like opt in. With no alternative, everyone needs to be in the 401k. Everyone needs to get the company match. The end. Let's get to that point. And there's also ways that we can lift folks up. We have an incentive that we run at Trotwood with some of our employer customers, where if 90% of the employees contribute to the 401k, 100% get the match. What does that recognize? Well, it recognizes at any point in time, a certain subset of a large employee base is going to be suffering some hard times for various reasons. And we have the mass. We can lift each other up in those times if we build it the right way. I'm going to go one level deeper on the 401k versus Roth IRA, because not all 401ks are created equal. Just get your company match. You always get the company match because that's, close to free money. But any extra, compare fees for your 401k and your Roth IRA. And that's going a little bit deep right there. But generally, if I can buy the same Vanguard fund in my Roth IRA and my 401k, it might be a little bit cheaper in my Roth IRA.
Well, and also recognize there too, it's like these are vehicles, right? So looking at it is
Good.
right, using your IRA to as your retirement, as your only retirement vehicle too. Like you have to still be mindful of where you're putting the money and kind of your traditional investing piece of that. I think that's something that students almost their like your target date funds are basically saying like they're leery of that for some reason. Like, well, don't I need to be like picking options, right? And it's like, no, like
Julie, let me share, because there is a mistake that a lot of people make. A lot of times you can open your 401k, it can sit in cash if you don't direct it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so it's sitting in their settlement fund. Yeah. This happens. Oh, this happens more than, yeah. So you have to tell the money what to do, where to go once it's in the vehicle. These are 401ks, IRAs, they're just the car. You got to get in and drive, put the money somewhere. Okay. Another question. How do you ensure you're making informed decisions? We've talked about this a little bit, but are there trusted sources that you personally rely on, or how do you vet what you hear?
So I personally don't buy individual stocks. And the reason I don't buy them is I'm not in the boardroom. So while they're accessible, I'm not informed to say Microsoft is a better investment than Apple outside of having personal opinions on their product. I'm not behind the scenes. So I buy the stock market, which diversifies risk. And the stock market means I'm buying all 500. Some are going to do great. Some aren't going to do great. I can go focus on my day job as opposed to how my investment portfolio is doing. Whereas if you own one individual stock, it can create, to your point earlier, Julie, massive stress when it's going the wrong direction.
And just to be clear too, micro investing is possible too through ETFs, right? We don't have to, we can still do a total market or a top 500 company.
Fidelity has a no minimum, no fee.
Right.
The next funds now. The world is innovating rapidly.
Right. So we don't have to purchase stock. And I think I see that a lot too. Students thinking, well, if I'm doing, just micro investing, I have to pick stock. Nope. This is all of the vehicles for traditional investing and total market for top 500 companies still available to you. All right. I'm seeing some comments in the chat, but if there's more of a question in there, then go ahead and put your question in. Happy to answer some more. This was sent to host a panelist, but I actually am going to ask it more broadly. So you've mentioned the missing second semester and read a bit from it. Can you comment on why you wrote this missing second semester? And then I'll also say the missing second semester, where can you get it? It's also on our bookshelf. So same places, university libraries and bookshelves at campuses, bookshelf here. If you're a World Campus student or an online student, you can email us, we'll mail you a copy. But yeah, tell us about the missing seconds.
I love that. And I'm going to tie it into a couple of the comments in the chat that like the fear of a stock market decline is real. And it is awful to see a declining portfolio, especially when it's really important to us. The reason that I wrote the missing second semester and focused so intently on long-term investing, and I'm going to show a screen that highlights this, but I'm going to ask the group a question first. What % return do you think the stock market is over your lifetime? Cumulative total return. Were you close?
To throw it in the chat, you can.
Was anyone close to 358,000%? The fear is real. I promise you, I feel it too right now. It's impossible not to, think this time it's different. And that has happened every time in history. These spikes were awful when they happen. And the farther back you go, it's always that way. staying the course is one of the hardest things to do, but one of the most important. And the missing second semester talks about things like dollar cost averaging, right? How do you build wealth in tough times like this? You be a really good Yvette. I'm not sure what career you're considering, but get in that career, get the job, make your contribution every paycheck. Don't sweat your 401k. Sweat being really good at your job. There was an earlier question about professional certifications. I've been talking about a nurse. Become a nurse practitioner. Massive salary bump. And use real data on that. I'm proud if you, I mean, Trotwood is a great resource for this. Build a plan to be a nurse and then tap nurse and make a nurse practitioner. And your whole plan will show what's possible with that salary increase. Focus on being good at your job and just invest over your whole lifetime. And I think things have worked out in every career cycle in history. And I promise you, every career cycle's had hard times. Hindsight makes those hard times into pictures, and pictures can be less emotional when you're actually living it. Yvette, we also have a pension calculator in our basic free app, Trotwood Basic, that would let you model what you have. I see your question on the pension.
Well, we've got 2 more minutes, so I'm gonna let folks, if you have one more burning question for Gene, throw it in the chat. We'll get it answered. But I just want to say, Gene, thank you so much for bringing such a real and grounded conversation, both in your book to your readers, but also to us today, and for collaborating with us. And I know you I know you're going to continue to be around and involved in your work at Penn State Barron and your work with us. And over at Pitt, our neighbors, but just thanks so much for being so willing to engage with our students directly in this way. It means a lot. And I think having, I'm not going to call you a finfluencer. I think you probably wouldn't like that, but I think having somebody who is willing to kind of speak directly in this way, not in the short form version, and be that sort of face for wise financial advice is really important, right? When there are a lot of other faces out there that students are connecting with. So I just appreciate you playing that role and kind of being willing to stand up, be like, yeah, I'll riff on this for a minute.
Yeah, no, Julie, thank you. It's an honor. I'll nibble real quick on a couple more questions and comments that have come in. Then I do have a kind of power statement to finish with. As you near retirement, diversification. These are these concepts that, you know, we who live and breathe in this field take for granted. But if you don't, we can't. It'd be like if I was asked to be a nurse, I'd panic. Can't do it. Not trained. Speak my language, please. Help me understand why my knee or my back or my heart hurts. So I really, really believe as an industry, we have to meet people where they are and speak the language that gets people going the right direction. The mid 40s question, you got a long runway still. That's 20 to 30 years. I would encourage you. I think I'm very biased. I think Trotwood's app is extremely powerful. Model 20, 30 years, set a goal and trust to the path. My power statement that I want to put on top of Julie's statement there, fear is normal. Acknowledge it. It can keep us alive. It has also survived much worse. And let that just sink in.
Thank you so much, Gene.